I mean, what's pro football focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Ready to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. We're going team by team.
I would be very careful about slinging stones.
Am I going to get sued?
You got legal on this?
Let's send you out on the right note. PFF sucks. Have a great day, everybody.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live from Radio Row. We made it here to Vegas, Sam.
We did. Media Row.
Media Row.
Not radio anymore.
Oh, it's media. Yeah,
Media.
we're all. It should be podcast.
Because we're
row.
videoing this. You know.
Yeah, we are. It is Media Row here over in Vegas. So always fun to be here. And, been head nodding a lot of people that I've met through the years but don't exactly remember who they are. That's what we've been doing here.
That's what most of this week is.
A lot of awkward handshakes and half hugs. A lot of that going on here.
It's in Mandalay Bay, right?
Yes.
And I thought it's all in the one room. It's all in one casino. So it'll be close together. How much walking could there be in Mandalay Bay?
Yeah.
Turns out about 17,000 miles.
We've been navigating through this labyrinth that is a couple buildings in Vegas.
Let's find out how many steps we've taken.
The people want to know
They
how
do.
long you've been.
You
assured me there'd be little walking
I
here.
did. I'm not having a good week in terms of accurate predictions. So
I am
far.
though with wing count. My wing count is up around 20, and I've been assured that we're going to get free wings here every day at 11 and 2 Pacific
Really?
time
I
every
didn't get
single
those.
day. So I will be partaking in those wings every single day at 11 and 2. I think that's the goal. There's some free catfish over there. Because the next year's Super Bowl is in Nolans. So there's always a next year's Super Bowl rep, and they're giving you a little taste of next year.
I've been saying that one of the things we should be doing this week is having some sort of little video that just is like a calorie counter for what you've consumed. Because I think it would already be well over 10,000 calories.
Thank you.
And just keeps going up.
Yeah. I'm getting ready for an on-location wedding in Mexico next month. I'm trying not to look that big, but we'll see what happens.
I mean, it's a fascinating, an interesting balance between the calories going up and the steps going up, and who knows which one's winning out.
We're gonna balance them out. So coming up today, we're gonna talk a little Drake Maye, UNC quarterback. We're starting a little draft talk. There's a buzz around the NFL and particularly the draft community about Drake Maye, who seems to be locked in at number 2 overall, maybe not being there. And we're going to have that coincide with Lance Zierlein's mock draft, which doesn't have him at number 2.
Yeah.
You have over 11,000 steps here today.
Already at 11,000. And look, so we've got a baseline of basically not moving. And then yesterday with the airport, it was quite a lot. And now today we're spiking to the moon.
Yeah, well done.
Thanks.
So a lot of moving over here. We're having a lot of fun. You're on Jim Rome here today.
It was. It's also, by the way, people might not know, it's freezing cold in Vegas. Yeah. It's cold and rainy outside.
Yeah, it's not great. Not great weather for Super Bowl week. So we're going to talk a little Drake Maye. We're going to talk a little NFL draft. But first, don't forget, the question is 2024, bringing exciting or unexpected changes to your life. Here's a secret weapon to help you face those challenges with more confidence. It's a great term life insurance policy. That's right. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to protect your family's financial future so you can focus on what's ahead, knowing your family is protected if something else unexpected happens. Fabric was designed by parents for parents to help you get a high-quality, surprisingly affordable term life insurance policy in less than 10 minutes. Fabric has flexible policies that fit your family and your budget, like quality policies like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. Get your personalized quote in just minutes and then apply when it's convenient for you. It's all online and on your schedule. You can go from start to covered in less than 10 minutes with no health exam required. So join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL, MEET fabric.com/PFFNFL. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Insurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting health questions. All right, we got a lot going on here. Dr. Eric Eager's running around here.
The doctor.
I would say rest in peace, but I see him alive and well over here. He might crash the show tomorrow, I guess, in the morning when we record.
Okay.
And then we're recording this. This is Tuesday's show. On Wednesday, we will record from Circa.
Yep.
I had at least one person reach out in the DMs. I'll get back to you. We will hang around Circa. We're going to record there at 4 Pacific time, Circa Sportsbook. We'll record our Thursday show on Wednesday afternoon at 4. So if you want to be there, hang out. We got like a cabana and the whole deal.
Yeah.
I guess. So you can come hang out after the show. We'll probably go hour and a half. We're going to have Brad and Trevor on the show. And, if anybody's in town and wants to hang out, Wednesday afternoon around 5:30 Pacific time, come hang out over at Circa.
All right.
All right, man, let's talk Drake Maye. You've watched a little Drake Maye. I think you're even lower on you haven't loved Drake Maye,
right?
UNC quarterback.
Yes.
And we're getting this buzz around the NFL as mock drafts come out. The mock drafts are sometimes a little bit of the mock drafters' evaluations and a little bit of what they hear. And the most recent mock that we're going to cover today is Lance Zierlein from NFL.com. Lance has Jaden Daniels going number 2 to the Washington Commanders, and I believe it's in part because he's a little either he's a little lower on Drake Maye, he's hearing more negative type of buzz, or he's not the lock at number 2, or a little combination of both. He's got Drake Maye actually going at 5 to the Falcons, who trade up in this mock.
Yeah, and I think this is now the second big mock. Was it? I think it was Jeremiah's mock. No, maybe it was Mel Kiper that had them flipped as well. That
yeah,
had
Mel
Jaden
had
Daniels.
them flipped.
Yeah. And we were saying when we sort of ran through those top 10s that, sometimes Mel Kiper in particular likes to put these things out as sort of discussion points, right? Like, hey, look, we should be talking about this more.
Right.
And we were saying that's a good thing, because I think that is a conversation that should be being had. Maybe not. I wasn't coming at it from the Jaden Daniels side of things, but the more I watched of Drake Maye, the more I was like, I can see why people don't love this, right? I can see why we would be getting questions about, is he really that top elite prospect? And, the more you watch, like, there's quite a lot of negative in here. The positive is great. The positive is obvious. And we're in this world now where it's like, how much do you weigh one versus the other? And that's getting harder as the years go by. But there's a lot of negative on Drake Maye's tape. And even if you just watch, say, Tez Walker tape, right? The number of misses or not good throws from Drake Maye is significant.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, those were some of my early notes coming into this season with Maye. To me, it felt like footwork issues, just straight footwork issues. He's going to miss a little swing pass or a little stick route. It's some of the easy stuff he tended to miss. But I think my analysis coming out of that, though, was he's still really young. And last year, he was a redshirt freshman, right? In 2022, he's only had 2 years starting. He's still only 21 years old. I don't always use the age as an excuse or even an explainer, because it doesn't always mean you're going to get better.
Right.
But I think in the Drake Maye, Jaden Daniels discussion, it's an interesting one, because when we saw Jaden Daniels at, say, 21 years old at Arizona State, nobody thought he was going to be a future, top 3 round pick. He had teammates at Arizona State who didn't like him. They were saying good riddance, whatever, and he goes to LSU and has a really nice 2022 and then an elite 2023 season. My point is, with Maye, I think the fact that he's 21, 2 years as a starter, I think he can clean up some of those issues. I think a lot of them are footwork related, and he can get better there. I think he's got all the tools to succeed. And when you compare him to Daniels directly, Daniels as a 23-year-old last year in the SEC has that 94.7 grade, the Heisman season, unstoppable as a runner, breaks the stat sheet. But I think that stuff matters when you're comparing those two players.
Well, it's like how important is seeing it versus assuming he'll get to that, right?
Yeah.
Like with Daniels, the fact that he's older meant that we got to see that year, and now that's what we can judge him on. Whereas with Maye, it's like, we don't know that he can get to that level yet. We assume he can because he's young and the rest of his game is so good and the tools are all there. But now you have to project and you have to say, in the NFL, with these tools, with the experience, with the growth and the age and the development and the maturity, does he get to that spot? Or does he get ahead of that spot? But that's now the conversation, right? It's projecting what he can be more than sort of being sure what he is right now, and what he is right now being good enough to be that guy.
Yeah, and I'm not just guessing on Maye. I mean, I think everything else he's done is really good. PFF grade of 91.6 in 2022 in his first year as a starter, 90.7 last year. I know people soured on Maye a little bit down the stretch, Clemson, NC State games, but I mean, I still think he's really good. I really think Maye's feel in the middle of the field is unbelievable. I think the way he throws the ball in between the numbers, his touch, his accuracy, he can throw a seam with zip, he can layer it. I feel like he's unbelievable at that part of the field. I want to see him do better throwing the ball outside the numbers, a little bit more touch on deep balls. He's flashed a little bit of that outside the pocket magic that I think you at least want to see. We don't want to build a whole case off that, but you want to see it. I think Maye has shown all of that. I mean, to me, Maye's still the guy at 2. It's just interesting to me that there's so many people around the NFL maybe saying that's not locked in, you know?
The underlying numbers across the board are really good, right? Like even with whatever flaws we're talking about being factored in, as you said, his PFF grade has been 91.5, 90.6. Now those aren't insanely good, right? We saw Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, those start pushing 93, 94, 95 even. So it's not at that level, but it is very good. And even things like, big time throw rate is extremely high, turnover worthy play rate is pretty low, adjusted completion rate is good. The only area you can find where the numbers are kind of weak is, I think, some ball location stuff, and that does show up. But even with all that put together, it's still more than good enough to be getting talked about as a really good prospect, particularly when you factor in prototypical height, prototypical size, prototypical arm, better athleticism than he's going to get given credit for because of the way he looks, but he can definitely move. So I think all the tools are there, and the level of play is already really good. We're not talking about a total project who, can't hit anything, is wildly inaccurate, and doesn't have all this kind of stuff. We just think there's the capacity for him to do that. We're most of the way there. It's just that the flaws are maybe bigger than they looked if you just took a surface level, quick run through his tape. Yep, it's all there. The more you watch, the more it's like, there's some more problems than I would have liked, but I don't think they're disqualifying.
So in the coming weeks, we'll get into more of our QB rankings and wide receiver rankings. The Jaden Daniels move, I'm not ready to put him, certainly not above Drake May. I don't even know if I would want to take him at 3 or 4 just yet. I think there are some concerns
to me
about Daniels.
Yeah.
He was a dynamic playmaker, absolutely a dynamic, and makes some incredible throws. Slot fade, outstanding, throws outside the numbers really well.
I'm not sure any of the Drake May, like the negatives, are even enough to take him away from both 2 as QB2 and the number 2 overall pick. To me, all it did was separated Caleb Williams and Drake May. Like I think going into the process, that was sort of the conversation, right? Caleb Williams has been the presumptive number 1 for a long time, but we've been saying there are going to be people that have Drake May number 1, not Caleb Williams, in large part because of the Caleb Williams negatives, right? And most of that is sort of, it's the intangible stuff. Oh, he paints his nails. Oh, he cried. Oh, all that kind of stuff.
I mean, it was on the field, too. He struggled under pressure. He's kept turning the ball over
but
down
anyway,
the stretch.
There were going to be people that had Drake May number 1. To me, when you start, the more you dive into the tape, the more it becomes pretty clear, I think, that it is Caleb Williams number 1, and then there's a gap.
Yeah.
And maybe maybe Drake May is the next guy, and there's a clear number 2, but there is a gap, I think.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about Lance's mock draft. It's over at NFL.com. Search Lance Zierlein. We've had him on, friend of the show. We've had him on here before. Saw him down there at the Senior Bowl last week, talking ball a little bit. He did go Caleb Williams, number 1 to the Bears. Jaden Daniels, number 2 to Washington. Drake May ends up going number 5 to Zach Robinson's Atlanta Falcons. A trade up by the Falcons. Go get Drake May. I mean, I think when we get to the draft, the big story. So one of the stories that's coming out now, will the Bears trade down to 2?
Right.
And Washington go to 1 to go get Caleb Williams? There's the Cliff Kingsbury connection at OC now. There's just the regional connection to Caleb Williams. That's going to be a big story. And then I think the rest of the top 10, the teams that need quarterbacks, the Patriots at 3, the Falcons, who else here? The Vikings at 11, the Broncos at 12, Raiders again. Will those teams be trading up? Will there be some movement? I think at least one of those QB-needy teams does make a move in this particular mock. Seeing the Falcons go to 5 to get May, I think, is an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, the Chargers obviously, or the Falcons rather, obviously need a quarterback. The big question for them is going to be, do they get it before the draft at all? Like, are they the team that Kirk Cousins goes to? Do they find another domino that they're happy with in the QB market, the veteran QB market? Or do they get to the draft? If they do, they, I think, have to do something aggressive to go get a quarterback. This feels like it would be a perfect scenario for them if they let it get to this stage.
Yeah.
We didn't get a quarterback veteran. We need something in the draft. To only have to go to 5 and get Drake May feels like a great result for them, right?
Yes.
Like, if somebody loves Jaden Daniels, if Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels are 1-2, you don't have to get up that high. You only have to get to 5, and you end up getting Drake May. I mean, I certainly haven't texted him, but I feel like Zach would love that,
We feel like he would. We'll see. I got to tell you about DraftKings, the leader in fantasy sports, just dropped a brand new fantasy app, Pick 6. Pick 6 is the newest way for you to get in on the fantasy football action with DraftKings. Just pick between 2 and 6 NFL players and choose if they're going to have more or less of a stat. For example, will a player have more or less than 100 rushing yards, or will a player have more than one touchdown? Track your lineup and compete against others for a shot at huge cash prizes. So download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and sign up with code PFF. That's code PFF only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 18 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions apply. Valid only in states where DraftKings Pick 6 operates. Pick 6 not available in all states, including but not limited to Connecticut and New York. For up-to-date list of states, please visit dkng.com/pick6states. Void where prohibited. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com. Other interesting moves here in Lance's mock draft. At number 3, the New England Patriots, a team, again, quarterback needy. And a big debate in New England is, do you take a Marvin Harrison Jr., get that quote-unquote generational wide receiver, and figure out quarterback later?
Yeah.
They do that in this particular mock draft, and then...
And/or they were the Kirk Cousins team.
New England.
Yeah.
Or Kirk Cousins...
I just use Kirk Cousins as the veteran quarterback answer.
Because there's no other real veteran out there that you're gonna say, we can get this guy and compete with, right?
Probably not.
Probably not.
I mean, is Russ terminal? Could you compete with Russ?
Is he free?
He will be.
Yet? I'm just saying with what we have right now. In this mock draft, though, the New England Patriots trade back into the first round and pick Bo Nix at pick 30. I did predict that Bo Nix would be getting more top 10 hype coming out of the Senior Bowl. I think he had an uneven performance where that wasn't the case.
Right.
So in this particular idea, Patriots trade with the Ravens into the first round at number 30 and get Bo Nix. I'm somewhat intrigued by the idea of a Marvin Harrison Jr. or a trade down, and then getting the quarterback late first again with a trade up or into the second round.
The trading back into the first for a quarterback thing doesn't have a great track record. The Ravens did it for Lamar, and that's the one that I can think of that was sort of pretty successful. Most of the other ones, there seems to be more of a reason when they were falling, where you thought it was attractive enough to trade up for, as opposed to you got to make this happen, go get the guy.
I don't know if I've dropped my Bo Nix official take yet. And, get ready. It's early February.
It's coming now?
We've got almost 3 months of this, so I will say this multiple times, I guess. I don't know. I'm getting stared at over here. I don't know if Bo Nix is going to be good or not.
That's your take?
No, I'm not done yet.
Okay.
But I don't think I'm the team that wants to find out. So I don't want to be the team to find out.
Okay.
He does a lot of good stuff.
Does that make him QB Tyree Wilson for you?
No, Tyree Wilson was just straight no.
The model said no.
And I guess I'm saying something similar. Like, there is a point where if Bo's available in the second round,
right,
I would do that. Tyree was just a straight no. He's off the board. Where's the?
We had
Where's
the laminate sheet?
I need my laminated.
We had an email in that I think goes along with this conversation of trading back into the first round.
I love that. Getting the viewers involved here.
This one from Miles Ray from Portland, unspecified which Portland. Could be Portland, Maine. Could be Portland, Oregon. We don't know.
Been to both. Played in both. Actually.
There you go. Thanks so much for putting out a show every day. I'm usually ripping through this a few minutes after it gets posted. I think the consensus team building advice from the analytics community is invest in top-tier draft capital in the quarterback invest top-tier draft capital in top-tier quarterback prospects. This has always felt wrong to me. Every team can use other lessons from analytics, be aggressive on fourth down, be smart in positional spending, and so on, but by definition, not every team can have a quarterback in a tier above the competition. In 2023, the team who most closely followed this advice was the Carolina Panthers, obviously trading up to number 1 to go get Bryce Young. Do you see their last 12 months as textbook cautionary tale against the aggressive quarterback drafting strategy, or why not? Is an actually more analytically savvy to evaluate if a team is getting value out of its quarterback investment. This year, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, Patrick Mahomes feel like some examples of teams getting surplus value at quarterback relative to the investment at all different levels of investment. Thanks for giving this a read. So
it's a good, I like this question a lot. I like the way it's framed.
Same, because generally I don't think you can criticize a team for going aggressively after trying to get a quarterback the way the Panthers did for Bryce Young, right? It's difficult to know how much of that situation, Bryce Young versus C.J. Stroud, was environment, everything around them, or how much did they just pick the wrong guy, right? If they flipped it, if the Carolina Panthers got a C.J. Stroud season out of Bryce Young and they'd made that move, everyone would be saying, great move.
Yep.
You went after your guy, you identified him, you went hard after him, you made the move, and you've turned the franchise around in one aggressive stroke. Now, this email, I guess, would make the point that the move is so aggressive, you almost prohibit that outcome by dismantling the things needed for the quarterback to be good in the first place. But I think it is a good question that maybe we need to think more about simply the value of not even just the quarterback, but the quarterback plus the other side of the equation, right? In Carolina's case, it's Bryce Young and his contract versus the things you had to give up to get Bryce Young, which is DJ Moore and his contract, which is also multiple other rookie contracts for guys that should be...
The player at 9.
Right.
This year's first-round overall pick,
exactly.
Which became first overall, of course.
Which theoretically are going to be players that come in on a rookie contract making a contribution to your team. So, somebody else suggested, like, I think this was in an email as well, it might have been a DM or something, but they were like, what if Chicago is actually better off keeping Justin Fields, trading out of number 1, and then even if you have to give Fields the $50 million a year contract, the extra 4 or 5 rookie contracts you're picking up with that draft haul ends up offsetting the Caleb Williams deal. You know what I mean?
So, yeah, a few things at play here. I think again, I like the frame of the question. I want to answer the part about should you just care about surplus value at the quarterback position? I think theoretically, yes. But if you could predict what you would get out of Geno Smith or what you would get out of Baker Mayfield, you would say, of course. But who could actually predict that? Other than, like, the biggest fans. Our friend Greg Rosenthal is a big Geno Smith fan. He would have predicted it.
Right.
Because he's a Geno Smith fan, or whoever the biggest Baker Mayfield fan is now after people have jumped off the wagon. If you could have predicted that, yes. If you could have predicted Patrick Mahomes, well, he wouldn't have lasted to 10.
Sure.
Right? Everybody else would have taken him. So that's the part of it that is an issue, that you're making these wagers basically that the payoff is special, and if you miss, it is just like a fourth down decision. Like if the Panthers miss on Bryce Young, you make the trade up because it might increase your chances of hitting, but if you miss, it is detrimental. The same way when the Lions miss on going for the fourth down, it does hurt more than if they had tried to kick a field goal or punted or whatever it might be. So I think that's part of the factor. I do think there is a fair question. What's happening?
Nothing. Tyler's just suggesting that I need some vertical help in this shot.
Oh,
we're back on location.
We
where
need to
I'm,
get the phone books for you.
Right.
We don't have the adjustable chairs.
Where I am being highlighted to
Anybody
be
have a
several
phone
feet
book over here?
below you.
On Radio Row? Sam looks too short. This is great. Sit up, Sam. Stack a couple chairs, baby. So,
Anywho.
Do we think the idea... So I think the question is actually more so around, do you always make the aggressive move for the quarterback, or do you build the infrastructure first? I think that's like that's the question that's hidden in this question.
Yeah, but the other part of it is you also, like, the level that the quarterback is at that you're chasing is relevant as well, right? So it's not just value and surplus value. There was probably very few quarterbacks in the NFL that gave more surplus value relative to how much it cost than Baker Mayfield, right? I think his deal was for $4 million. He ended up getting $6.5 because of the playoff run, et cetera. $6.5 million for the level Baker Mayfield played at is great. You would still rather Josh Allen at his contract, right? Because the ceiling is higher. His capacity is higher. Okay, it's costing you more, but you would rather that. If you got offered the choice, if someone had gone in and said, okay, the Baker thing's worked out great for you, I will offer you Josh Allen his contract for Baker and his deal straight up right now, they would take it. Even
any surplus value conversation there doesn't matter. Like the on paper doesn't matter, because the ceiling matters.
So you can't just focus on getting the maximum surplus value out of the contract. You also need, the guy still needs to be good enough that we can win a championship. Otherwise, it's pointless.
I agree. In the Bucs, like, the Bucs might go through this offseason and they re-sign Baker, and all of a sudden he's making $30 million a year, and Mike Evans gets re-signed, and you're essentially trotting out a similar team next year. And as fun as this season probably was for Bucs fans to kind of overachieve a little bit and, you know, silence some doubters and make the final 8 in the NFL, are you actually a top 8 team going into next year if you're the Bucs? I mean, probably not. So there's a point where the nice Baker Mayfield story or the nice Geno Smith story, like Seattle fans are already saying, Geno Smith's not the guy. He's a good story. He's going to get us on the fringe playoff team. We were a playoff team one year, just missed the second year. Like, that might be the ceiling. And once the feels wear off, you realize the ceiling's low, and I don't want to play that game. So that's the issue, I think, with that. So you're always going to. So analytically, we're kind of saying, yeah, chase the ceiling, because at some point you're going to sour on the mid-tier quarterback guy, even if he is cheap.
I think one kind of overarching element, though, that might be a useful sort of change in direction or change in philosophy from what I think is a broadly correct interpretation of what people have been saying for a long time is you need to start looking more at what's on the other side of the balance sheet, right? Like that idea of Justin Fields' contract is about to be so high that you need to reset and start with Caleb Williams. But we don't know what the other side of that balance looks like, where if you get a trade and you go with Justin Fields, even if you have to re-up him at $50 million a year, if you get 4-5 new starters that are all on rookie contracts, that's probably a similar balance to quarterback on a rookie contract, but now you got to go veteran for the other players. I
think there are NBA comparisons here too. I don't know the NBA a ton, but I know a little bit of how they try to do the team building stuff. And a lot of what they're doing though is to facilitate a world where they can either get the elite player through free agency or through the draft. And if they can't do that, they just stack up assets.
Right.
Assets that are never going to win championships, but can be pooled to go get the player, right? And I think the Bears actually were kind of in that spot. They said, hey, Bryce Young or CJ Stroud isn't going to be the guy for us, but we're going to stack up assets. And that includes DJ Moore, that includes, Darnell Wright, that includes this year's #1 overall pick. So if the question specifically for the Bears, should they do that again, right? Should they trade down, take QB2, QB3, QB4, and add up 4 more rookie contracts, flip another first rounder to next year, whatever it might be? I don't know if that's the right play. I think they're now in striking distance for that potential grand slam for Caleb Williams. So you have to strike. They've put themselves in great position. But I think it's also fair when we said last year, hey, they should draft Bryce Young and keep Justin Fields and let them compete. I think it's fair to criticize that line of thinking and say don't just draft 1 million quarterbacks. Don't just do that. Keep getting good pieces, and then when you're in Caleb Williams striking distance, you have to do that. You have to go get him. So I will say maybe we were wrong last year saying, hey, draft Bryce Young and bring in Justin Fields. The Bears have and I didn't hate what the Bears did. It was fine.
Right.
But they've put themselves in a great position here, obviously, to have Williams plus DJ Moore and everything else that they've added.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go back to the mock draft here?
Yeah.
Does that answer the question in
I think so.
The long-winded, winding way that we do here on the PFF NFL podcast? That's how we do it. Other things that stood out here in this mock.
Well, there's another really obvious one.
Go ahead.
I mean, we had Jaden Daniels and then Drake Maye sort of sliding slightly. We also have Fuaga as the #1 offensive tackle off the board.
He goes to the Giants at number 6, and then then the next tackle is the next pick. Titans at 7, Joe Alt. So Fuaga over Joe Alt.
Now, how much of that is just shoehorning a fit at right tackle specifically because Evan Neal has struggled and because Andrew Thomas is great at left tackle?
I think there's probably some of that in the mock here. And again, Lance is his dad was an NFL offensive line coach. Like, he is as plugged in as far as O-line evaluations go, and he's good at that. So, I don't know if this is Lance saying, I love Fuaga so much,
right,
I want to say he's OT1. Because, again, like, people try to make statements with their mock drafts and say, this is my top tackle. I think the NFL is going to agree and take him first. Or if he's just saying, yeah, it's a fit thing. Titans need a left tackle. We're going to give Joe Alt to them at 7. Whereas Fuaga played right tackle, and Evan Neal has struggled a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's doing this, but chasing a right tackle specifically, because that's the spot you need help with, feels like bad process to me. I mean, there's a debate as to, left versus right, how much can you just swap them over, and some guys I'm sure can't, but I think generally the opinion is if you take a tackle in the draft and you flip him over day one, that's not going to be the reason he sinks or swims, right?
Yeah.
And if you think that Joe Alt is the best tackle in this draft, you shouldn't be taking somebody else because you need a right tackle specifically.
And we've seen, we've gone past the idea that left tackle's more valuable than a right tackle,
right.
I think generally, but even with a Penei Sewell, who is the quintessential left tackle.
Yeah.
And the Lions drafted him and just put him on the right side, and he's become the best right tackle.
And it didn't look good in preseason, but he's now he's now arguably the best right tackle in the game. And
he's not the best right tackle because he does right tackle type of things necessarily. He's just a really good tackle who happens to play on the right side. Alt at 7, though, I think that'd be a home run for the Titans.
Oh yeah,
given their needs.
Again, like that's their equivalent of the Falcons thing on this, right? Like if the draft unfolded this way for them, for this to be the second tackle taken in the draft and them still get Joe Alt, I think would be a home run for them.
Chicago Bears get Malik Neighbors at 9, so you get that Caleb Williams, Malik Neighbors combination. Remember last year at this time we were trying to pair, we did a lot of CJ Stroud at 2 to Houston and pairing him with a receiver at 12, I think it was, that they had, and didn't necessarily work out that way in last year's draft for Houston because they traded up and they ended up getting Will Anderson.
They brought in Tank Dell.
But they did eventually bring in Tank Dell. But I think that's a pretty common play here, mock draft-wise, Bears getting Caleb Williams and then a weapon at 9.
Yeah, and Neighbors being the third wide receiver off the board because Odunze went at number 4 to Arizona in this case.
The other just keys. Do you have anything else?
No, just that's another one of those sort of critical positional ranking conversations in this whole draft. Who is wide receiver 2 after the consensus number 1 of Marvin Harrison Jr.?
So the other place I think is a really pivotal spot in the draft is 11, 12, 13. Minnesota Vikings at 11, Denver Broncos at 12, Las Vegas Raiders at 13. All teams that need quarterbacks, all teams that I think a lot of teams have been rumored to trade up for quarterbacks. But in this particular mock draft, we get the Vikings going Jared Verse, the edge defender out of Florida State, at 11. I didn't realize until I heard the other day the last time they drafted a first-round edge was Erasmus James.
They had a run. They had a run of catastrophic first-round edge rusher drafts, and then eventually went to hell with this. Send 2 first-round picks to Kansas City.
Give me all the
for
corners.
Jared Allen.
They drafted all the corners. Our friend Rick Spielman.
Yeah, but they had a bunch of them. They just couldn't solve the edge rusher problem with first-round guys. Erasmus James, Kenichi Adesi, they drafted, and eventually they just went, send Kansas City whatever they need to get Jared Allen. That'll do
all
it.
The picks. Then the Broncos go J.J. McCarthy at pick number 12. So I mentioned earlier, Bo Nix doesn't go till pick 30. And J.J. McCarthy is the 4th quarterback off the board in this draft at pick number 12 to the Denver Broncos. And then the Las Vegas Raiders go defensive lineman Byron Murphy out of Texas. But J.J. McCarthy going at 12 to Denver. I think McCarthy's a tough evaluation because it was such a run-heavy scheme. There were games where he threw the ball 10 times, 12 times. And then going to Sean Payton in Denver as a guy with not a pure toolsy quarterback. He's not huge. He's not a big guy, but he's got a pretty good arm. He's very athletic, J.J. McCarthy. Intriguing fit, I think, for Sean Payton offense.
Yeah. Did you see Jim Harbaugh? Should be the first quarterback off the board.
I heard that.
I.e. the number 1 overall pick.
It's not the first time he said that.
No.
I think he said it generally during the season at some point, and now he's saying it as the Chargers head coach.
Yes.
By the way. Now, I don't think Harbaugh would say, because the Chargers have the number 5 overall pick, I don't think Harbaugh would say, let's go get him.
Right. I mean, I don't think for a second that he actually means it, and even if he did, I don't think it means that he is anything other than sort of tainted by the loyalty of having coached him. But it does, like, if you take him at his word that he believes J.J. McCarthy is the number 1 player in this entire draft, it does kind of raise those interesting questions of, if you thought he was a sort of generational best QB in this draft prospect,
why were you running 4 tight ends?
Well, forget that. But you're high enough in this draft that you could make a run at it, and you have a pretty enticing, trade bait in the guy that you have already given the contract to.
I'm going to say that Jim Harbaugh is making that statement somewhat in a vacuum.
Agreed.
and just trying to make the point that I love this kid.
Yeah,
he's
and he's
awesome.
just trying, even if he's being cynical about it, he's just trying to boost the prospect of the guy that he coached. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I don't think Jim Harbaugh
but
is
if you did take him at his word and think he means it, I mean,
he'll be there at 5.
Right, it raises some interesting questions.
Yeah, I don't think that's Jim Harbaugh saying, I've evaluated all the quarterbacks. I've seen Caleb Williams. I've seen Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, and JJ
is better
than all of them. I don't think that's what he's saying.
And he's better than the guy I have right now.
That's all we do here is interpret the statements without overreacting to them on the PFF NFL podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Getting into the mid-teens, Brock Bowers with the Indianapolis Colts at 15.
That's the lowest I think I've seen him in a while. Like,
it is.
And it makes sense just because of the position and because of the history of Kyle Pitts and how that didn't necessarily work out. It feels like we all want to put him in the top 5 or whatever just because of how good he is, but if he slipped to 15, it wouldn't shock people.
It reminds me a little bit maybe of a Kyle Hamilton type of situation, where you can look at Hamilton and say he's an awesome football player. I think he's going to be a great NFL player, but he's a safety. He also ran slow at the combine. And then Hamilton goes at 13 to the Ravens and ends up becoming one of the best players in the draft, 13 or 14.
But isn't that the classic example? Like, we were asking at the time with Kyle Hamilton in particular, is he special enough that you throw out the rules of position value and where do you take him? And teams didn't. They let him fall to the Ravens, right? Middle of the first round. We were saying, should he be the number 2 overall pick? If he had been and he's turned into the player he is right now, it wouldn't look crazy. So is Bowers the same case? Like, is he special enough? Again, like, the problem is you've got the Kyle Pitts recent history of that specific position. But that, I think, should be the debate again. Like, is he special enough that we junk the rules?
And I know we pick on this guy
a lot. The answer to that might be no, but
here's my question. Would you rather have Kyle Hamilton or Trayvon Walker, who did go number 1 overall to Jacksonville? Now, you could say, I would take Aiden Hutchinson over Kyle Hamilton, certainly, but there's not a whole lot of players in the first round. A.J. Brown, I always said, was the best pick in the first round, the best selection that any team came away with. But there's not more than 3 or 4 players that you would take over Kyle Hamilton in the first round. So Bowers could be interesting there, too, because you've got the few things working against him. Undersized relative to other tight ends. Does he block enough? Tight end generally takes time to develop. The most recent, quote-unquote, generational tight end was Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
Haven't gotten the most out of him. We'll see if Atlanta, changes how they use him or what the production looks like there. And Pitts he's at a 1,000-yard receiver season, but it doesn't feel like, hey, the 4th overall pick, especially when Jamar Chase was picked right after him and essentially plays the same position that Pitts has been playing.
I think the answer to these questions can always be no, on the basis that chasing exceptions is probably bad process and not what you want to be doing. But I think we should be asking them for guys like Bowers, right? And we should have been asking them, we were, for guys like Kyle Hamilton, and maybe the answer to that one was yes. But I think it would be a mistake to just let him fall to the middle of the first round without asking that question because of Kyle Pitts and because he's a tight end. We should be saying, this guy's resume is insane, his ability is spectacular. Give me the good reason why he's not a top 5 draft pick, right? Tell me any reason why this draft does not go QB, either wide receiver or QB, and then Bowers. Like, that should be the question we're asking. Even if the answer is, he's a tight end, he's probably not the unicorn, we'll get him 10 picks later.
Intriguing playmaker, though, if he does fall to 15 to the Indianapolis Colts. I wanted to highlight Latu from the New Orleans Saints, or to the New Orleans Saints at 14. Latu also feels like, man, if I get him at 14, I'm feeling pretty good.
Love it
about that. I think you and I are going to be high on him as we get into ranking season in the coming weeks. I want to take a minute here to reset because Zach, our social media guy over here, we wanted to talk about Mike Macdonald.
Yeah.
And the Seattle Seahawks. So we're going to roll that into right now because the Seahawks pick at 16, and a lot of Seahawks fans are looking to these edge defenders. Jared Verse from Florida State. He's off the board in this mock, but could be available there. Dallas Turner from Alabama. Latu could be available there. But Mike Macdonald, we haven't discussed him being the new head coach in Seattle. Mm-hmm. Your initial thoughts on Macdonald there, and then maybe what Seattle could do with that pick at 16.
I like the hiring. I think we talked a lot this season about how good Mike Macdonald's defense has been in Baltimore. They've had probably the best pass defense in the NFL. Overall defense has been very good. It is running. The Vic Fangio scheme was really in vogue. Maybe it's going out right now, and the one that's coming in is the one that Mike Macdonald is running. It's the right defense to be capturing, and I think it's the right style of hire to move on from a guy like Pete Carroll with, right? We can debate whether that was a fair move or not, deciding, because it sounds like that was a lot more not mutual than it sounded when they were announcing it, right? Yeah, the Seahawks and Pete Carroll have mutually decided to go in a different direction. He's going to move upstairs. Everybody's happy about it. It's going to be great, right? It sounds like the longer this goes, it was more ownership decided, hey, Pete, thanks for the hard work, but we're going to go in a different direction now. Would you like it to look good, or should we just get rid of you, you know? And they sort of gone for some sort of publicity appealing way of announcing it.
I sense you leaving PFF something like that someday. We'll just mutually part ways, Sam.
Or will
you
we?
won't get fired.
No. But if you're going to do that, you're now in the reality. We're moving on from a legend, a guy that's done so much for the team, won championships, put us in the position to be successful. Who do you try and move on from that with? I feel like it's tougher to say Mike Vrabel. Good luck following that. Or even Bill Belichick, right? Or whatever, like the veteran retread. I think if you're going to try and go in that direction, the easiest sell is who's a hot, young coaching hire, and if they specialize on the defensive side of the ball, the thing we're known for, all the better.
Do you have a way that you would characterize the Mike Macdonald, the Ravens defense? Because it's not just that. It's the Ravens and the Michigan scheme.
Yeah.
And I'll let you, if you want to characterize the scheme in a second. The way I would characterize the rosters for both Baltimore and Michigan, even if you just look at like the PFF grades, it's just solid green across the board. The Ravens were just really good, top to bottom, a good defensive line, edges and interior, good linebackers, good safeties, solid corners. They were good, and Michigan's defense was this, right, Self? Michigan's defense was pretty much the same. No real stars. Self reminds me, he's a Michigan man over here. 15-0 they went this year, Michigan. So they were just, like, who were the stars? They were just solid across the board. But schematically, how would you classify what's going to Seattle right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's aggressive. I think they're good at creating pressure, not necessarily just by front four, not necessarily with the blitz, but with a combination of misdirection, of disguise, of simulated pressure, creeper pressure, like all these things to make it difficult to identify exactly what they're going to do and confuse offenses. Like, we're in the world where now the thing that has the most success in the NFL, I think, on the defensive side of things is some version of disguise, whether it's rotating safeties, whether it's changing the look pre and post snap in the back seven, or whether it's doing it up front as well with pressure looks. And we saw that a lot with Brian Flores in Minnesota. It was a different way of doing it. He would just stack the line with a bunch of guys. Sometimes they'd come, sometimes they'd all drop off. You wouldn't know which. But that ability to put an offense on the back foot with what you were doing on defense and actually reclaim the impetus and the front foot and all this, I think is the way the defense is going right now.
So that's one of the interesting things I think about Seattle at 16, and I think a lot of Seahawks fans talking about these edge defenders who could be available there. And again, Lance Zierlein going Dallas Turner in this mock. The Ravens team building effort over the last few years, they have not really emphasized edge rusher. It doesn't mean that they haven't, drafted an Odafe Owe in the first round, or they haven't, put some resources to there. But the Ravens have done a lot of back-to-front type of team building. I think they made a pretty calculated move to go get Roquan Smith in the middle of the 2022 season, and he was a huge part of that defense getting better and better. So I don't know if Seattle's going to go the edge route here, if they're going to go with, if Macdonald's going to carry over. Was that a team-building philosophy from the Ravens, from the front office, or was that a defense-building philosophy? Because if you're creating more one-on-ones, if you're creating more indecision from the offense, you're not necessarily dependent on the guy that wins one-on-one all the time.
Yeah, and the individual that I'm most excited from the Seahawks' point of view to be in this defense is Devin Witherspoon. I mean, we already saw what he did as a rookie. They used him a lot blitzing from the slot. They used him aggressively, creatively. I can't wait to see Witherspoon in this defense. I know he already name-dropped Witherspoon as a guy he was particularly excited to coach. He talked about, they did a lot of work scouting him.
Yeah.
Right, they did a lot of work scouting him, and now he gets to put him in this defense and see what it can do.
So draft-wise with Seattle, I mean, I would take a Jared Verse if he was there. I would look at those edge rushers, even if they're not emphasized in that scheme. That might just be where the value is in this draft, depending on how the board ends up following. I think there's some corners that could be available there, but they've really loaded up at corner the last couple of years with Witherspoon, with Tariq Woolen.
And they've struggled to get that defensive identity back in a post-Legion of Boom landscape, right? They got better, but they never really recaptured that magic as a true strength and identity of the team. I think this is a good way of trying to get that back as a team, as a franchise.
All right, rest of this mock draft here by Lance Zierlein. I think Olu Fashanu going to the Cincinnati Bengals at pick 18.
People are souring on him, and I don't really get it.
I'm surprised. I thought I was going to be the one souring on him because I was going to say the run blocking is not great, but he's unbelievable from a pass pro standpoint, footwork, technique. He's still really young and has room to develop. I am surprised. I think when I was trying to predict people's reaction here, I thought they were going to love him.
Yeah.
Lock him into the top 10, pass pro, that's all you need. But yeah, he's ended up more in mid-first for a lot of mocks.
If I told you going forward he'll have a 10-year NFL career, he will never be good as a run blocker, would you care? Based off what I've seen from his pass protection, if you told me that as a given, I would still take him in the top 10.
So the comp I was using for him is Laramie Tunsil, who has become one of the best pass blockers in the NFL.
Right.
And his run blocking is good, not great. It's fine. Mm-hmm. I mean, even when we used to classify Joe Thomas, we would say he's a good run blocker. He's not known for that necessarily.
Yeah.
Joe Thomas is probably better than Tunsil. Tunsil's probably better than Fashanu. And I'm not saying Fashnu's exactly Tunsil or certainly not Joe Thomas, but you're talking about a guy who has the tools, has the ability to be a top 3 to 5 pass protecting left tackle in the NFL. So yeah, I think I would be happy with that. If I'm the Bengals, I would absolutely be happy.
If you're the Bengals, ecstatic.
Now, I don't know what they do if they move Orlando Brown back to right tackle and upset him, but either way, you've got a guy that can help Joe Burrow.
Right. But, Fashanu is one of the best 3 pass blocking tackles I can think of coming into the draft, right? The 3 that jump to mind since, I don't know how far you got to go back, but it's him, Tyron Smith, and Joe Thomas. In terms of footwork, ability to move, ability to mirror, his technique from a pass blocking standpoint, those are the 3 gold standards as prospects in the last, whatever that is, 15 years. If he's at that level, then I don't care if he's never a good run blocker. It's worth a top 10 pick easily. I'm kind of surprised. I can get maybe thinking that Joe Alt is a better, all-around package and a guy that we want to roll with because of what he can do, particularly for certain offenses. But if we're dropping Fashanu into the lower half of the first round, I think that's overkill.
I'm going to let you look through the mock and see if there's anything else that stands out to you, I think, as we get toward the end. But Lance is not in on your Jackson Powers Johnson to Pittsburgh idea. He does have JPJ going to the Arizona Cardinals at pick 27. That's the pick that they got from the Houston Texans to shore up the center position. Interesting one, though, is the Steelers taking Amarius Mims, the tackle out of Georgia. Would be back-to-back years where the Steelers take a Georgia tackle, pair Mims with Broderick Jones, and I think that would be a smart move, right? I mean, they had to replace both tackles were a weakness coming into the season. I think Broderick Jones stepped in, upgraded right tackle, have Mims take over for Dan Moore at left tackle, and boom, the Steelers would improve their tackle situation or their offensive line situation with Mims. So I don't hate that as a pick that stood out to me.
Yeah, I mean, in order to get to his Hall of Fame trajectory, he needs to be drafted by the Steelers.
It has to be the Steelers.
Yeah, so
his
that's
first-round centers are automatic Hall of Famers in Pittsburgh.
I guess some of the interesting things that jump out to me are the wide receivers in the rest of the first round. So there's a gap after that initial run of receivers, right?
Yep.
Is there another one at all until towards the bottom?
Brian Thomas at 28.
So that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it jumps all the way from Neighbors at 9 to Brian Thomas, his LSU teammate, at 28. I have to say, I've done quite a lot of work on the wide receivers. Brian Thomas was the one big name consensus kind of guy that everyone's high on that I did not like particularly at all. So, there's enough people I've seen since that really like him that I want to take another run through that just to check myself. But him being at 28 to the Buffalo Bills, so it's a good fit in terms of receiver needy team. And then number 31, Roman Wilson, the Michigan receiver Senior Bowl standout that we talked about, getting himself into the first round and going to Kansas City.
Just watched a lot of Roman Wilson the other day. Saw him at the Senior Bowl last week. So we'll talk about him at 31 to the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs pairing a receiver with them makes a lot of sense. And then Darius Robinson, the defensive lineman out of Missouri, goes to the Lions at 29. Those are 2 picks. Again, I don't know Lance's reasoning. If it's, I legitimately saw these guys at the Senior Bowl and they stood out and they were awesome, I think they're going first round now. Or if we're just trying to make a point, they were 2 of the best players at the Senior Bowl. This is where they could be. But Roman Wilson, I think he had been looked at as a second rounder at best previously, more of a third round type of guy. Him going to the first round of the Chiefs, outstanding route runner, that would be a good fit in Kansas City.
I mean, it's a nice fit. It's just fascinating to me. So that means 5 wide receivers in the first round in his mock, and 2 of them are Brian Thomas and Roman Wilson, which leaves a lot of sort of big names out of that first round that people are putting in there regularly at the moment.
It does. And then with Darius Robinson, he's a guy that's played interior defensive line the majority of his career at Missouri, played outside. He did have one of the better Senior Bowls. I honestly don't always trust other people's eyes and reactions.
Sure.
In part because, as we've said at the Senior Bowl, you don't get to see everything. Sometimes you miss some reps. It's impossible to see everything. But Darius Robinson, I think the consensus was correct on this. Snap for snap, really a dominant Senior Bowl. He's massive. He's really big for an edge rusher, right? He's 285 with incredible length and power. So my mom wants to know when the podcast is starting.
Yeah.
I only checked it because, if my mom texts me, it's like,
right,
hope something serious isn't going on here.
Yeah.
And then I read it. It's like, text us when you're going to start. She's mad that we're starting late here today. I apologize, Mom.
Her and everybody else.
Just a late start to the podcast here, because we can't go live. Sorry, to finish the Darius Robinson thought, though, he's going to be one to keep an eye on because the Senior Bowl was special. Great length and movement skills, and the whole deal has been pretty good from a production standpoint. But he's a tweener body, tweener style. But boy, that Senior Bowl reminded me a little bit of Jermaine Johnson, Senior Bowl, Jets edge rusher who had
really
limited college production, but was really unblockable at the Senior Bowl, and eventually that did, translate to the NFL.
Yeah, really good at the Senior Bowl, and particularly against the run. Like, he was dominating all week in those run drills. He's a guy I think that's put himself in the first round.
Anything else you want to talk about mock draft-wise? We had Tyler Guyton, a guy that we've talked about a bunch, goes 25 to the Green Bay Packers. Another, to me, he's a developmental type prospect because he's got such limited experience, limited production, at least by PFF standards, but all the tools. I mean, he's a Fashanu type as far as what he can do, what you see, but Fashanu's still more advanced, I think, from a pass pro standpoint. So them two kind of, I don't know if they're going to start converging in mock drafts, right? Fashanu and Guyton here.
Yeah, and a decent run in cornerbacks in the draft. So what do we got? Five corners, I think, go in this first round as well. Starting with the guy that I think is starting to emerge maybe as the number 1 consensus corner, Terran Arnold, the Alabama corner. More and more people I see now are having him as the consensus number 1 guy. He goes at number 8 to the Los Angeles Chargers after that trade. Then the next corner off the board is your guy Quinion Mitchell at 17 to the Jags. If there's an alternative to Arnold as a number 1 corner, I think Mitchell is putting himself in that category. He had a strong Senior Bowl as well. 19 is the little corner run. The Rams getting Nate Wiggins, the Clemson corner. Kool-Aid McKinstry, 22 to the Philadelphia Eagles, who absolutely need a new injection of youth at corner. And then 26 with Rakestraw Jr. from Missouri going to the Bucks. That was the final one, right? So a decent run of corners in the first round as well.
The Eagles taking a corner. They're one of the teams I've mocked corners to them a lot through the years, and the fans get very mad.
Yeah.
They're like, Howie's not going to do that. Howie's track record is very much, we're taking the trench players. We're taking O-line, D-line. That's what we do. I do wonder if this is a year where they're going to do a little bit of free agency, maybe, but if they do go for the youth movement because of how quickly James Bradbury seemed to age, and then just the fact that Slay is getting a little bit older as well. It's just Slay.
Just one name.
Tirico
Slay.
said it's just Slay during that playoff matchup, or whenever they had their
The
game.
people, though, they will shout at you that, they've got They've got the replacements ready-made. You know, Eli Ricks is going to get a year older, a year better. He's going to step
Everybody's
in. He's going to be
better.
the guy. Keely Ringo, right?
We're just preparing for what the people are
Big
gonna
talent, big prototypical corner. He's going to be the guy next year, you know? Okay, yes, maybe that's the world that happens. The Eli Ricks and Keely Ringo step in, and they're your new Bradbury and Slay, and they're going to take you to the Super Bowl. Alternatively, you might need more new young corners to come in.
All right, there's one more thing we need to touch on today.
Yeah?
I think we hit on everything. What's in the title? We talked Mike Macdonald, we did the mock, and we talked Drake Maye. We covered everything. Mike Vrabel. The amount of bias that a large human being has to deal with around today's NFL.
I was about to ask, are we covering this because you are unusually sensitive to bigism as a large
I'm
human?
over here. I mean, why even have a draft model that's going to double your draft hit rate? Why even have this if Mike Vrabel, who's smaller than me, is being word around the league is that he's too big. He's just too big and strong and intimidating for these little owners to deal with. He's just too intimidating.
So for anybody,
what does that do? Like, what does that say for people like me that are trying to get into the GM door here?
Let's get to that in a minute. For people that don't know,
let's get to that in a minute.
What the hell are you talking about?
What are we talking about?
Yeah.
Set it up. You tell me.
I just asked you. You're on the rant. What the hell are you on about?
Diana Rossini. I'm not gonna quote her directly because I don't have it right in front of me. You can find it if you want. Diana Rossini. Dying to get on the podcast, by the way. We'll talk to Diana at some point.
Cool.
Hopefully. We'll see. Diana reported from the Senior Bowl that some GM, she was asking about Vrabel, and some GM basically said, do you have the quote exactly?
So there's two, right? She followed up. An anonymous GM tells Diana Rossini that Vrabel's physical stature may have been a factor. Quote, he's a very large human being and can be very intimidating to people in an organization. She then quote tweeted that. That was from The Athletic, who was, turning this into social media fodder. And she says, I absolutely laughed at the notion. But the GM followed up by saying, quote, I'm just telling you, I've been in rooms, and somebody's physical presence can make a difference. End quote. Thoughts, large human?
It's just not kind. It's not nice. It's not nice.
You have to admit, though, as an unusually large human, that it is a thing. I mean, you have a presence to you that certain people find unusually intimidating. Now, I'm not one of them.
Right, but as you've said, I don't use that enough. So maybe I'm okay. Maybe I'm okay. Maybe, Mike Vrabel is an intimidating
Maybe he
guy.
does.
I mean, we were at Titans camp. There was a brawl.
Yeah.
And they were in. Were you there? Or I was there that day, right? There was a brawl, and there's helmets flying or whatever, and Mike Vrabel just jumps in the middle of it.
Right.
I'm going to break this up. I might start throwing some blows too. I don't know. We'll see what happens. See how mad I am. I don't do that.
Might slap some fools while I'm at it.
I don't care if helmets are flying around here and I don't have one on. We're doing this. So yeah, I mean, he's probably more intimidating than me, but I'm bigger than him.
Yeah, you are. But I think it sounds ridiculous, right? And it should be ridiculous. But there are definitely individuals out there in the world who are unusually intimidated by exceptionally large people. We know some of them, right? I have remarked on it repeatedly for the last several years.
We have coworkers.
Right. There are certain people that find you unusually scary.
It's never the right people, though.
I'm not.
It's
No,
never
I know.
the people that
Right. It's not helping you, but
pay the bills or anything. It's
but
never
they
the right
exist,
people that are
right?
intimidating.
I don't find you physically intimidating, but certain people do. And if one of those people is running an NFL team, you're not getting the GM gig. They're going to take one look at you and they go, I'm not letting Big Goofy sit in a room opposite me and intimidate me over a draft decision.
I just feel like
not
my potential GM options just got cut in half, a third, a quarter. I don't know.
It got reduced.
Who are the biggest owners in the NFL? I got to figure out who's going to be least intimidated.
Yeah. I don't know. There aren't. I don't.
Anybody know any? Irsay wouldn't be intimidated.
There aren't that many giant. Oh, I don't think size is your thing.
Tepper
right?
wouldn't be intimidated. He'd just be chucking water at me.
Like,
or something.
for example, there's not a chance in hell. There's not a chance in hell that Jerry Jones is concerned by your size.
No.
Right?
No, Jerry's seen some stuff through the years.
Exactly.
He's not.
Jerry doesn't care that you're a giant human. David Tepper probably doesn't care that you're a giant human. Yeah. They got bigger fish to fry. They've got other things to deal with. They wholeheartedly believe that they can ruin your life and extinguish you if you overstep the boundaries, right?
I mean, that's the thing. Why would you be intimidated? ball's in your court, man.
But there are owners. I don't know how many. There's 32 NFL owners. I don't know what the number is that would find you and Vrabel intimidating. But I believe it's a thing.
Well, let us know if you think this is going to hinder my chances of getting that GM job, which we're working hard to get here while we're at the network and
but to
Senior
be clear,
Bowl, Super Bowl,
To be clear, lest I get, implicated in this sizeism, I believe it's silly. But I do believe it's real. Silly but real. So Diana's not just making stuff up from the sideline of the Senior Bowl. This is real Certainly
stuff.
not when it comes to this story. Who knows what else she's been saying? I can't vouch for everything she's tweeted.
She said it. So it's an unnamed current GM. It's one of the 32.
Yes. So at least one of these people is in that category. I believe there's probably more than one, but I don't know how many.
Man. All right. Well, that's the week here. That's the news from the week.
Man,
other news,
really,
we got free wings every day from 11 at 11 and 2.
I can see it's really bummed you out as a huge human.
Yeah, I'm upset, but I'm going to go eat some more wings to get even bigger.
You did crush
free wings. It's free wing time.
You crushed a total body workout this morning.
We got 6 minutes between now and doing Bob Sturm doing the show in Dallas.
See how many wings you can house in 6 minutes?
We got to go get some wings.
All right.
They're free again.
I can go do that.
You guys can get 30% off PFF subscriptions. PFF, the promo code's 30MDS. 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 30% off your PFF subscription right now over at PFF.com.
I just want to leave with this closing thought. I was on the Jim Rome show earlier today.
Wow.
And I don't want to drop names except for
dropping.
a reason. If you have noticed that I have a different color complexion or that there's a slight less shine on my head than there normally is, it's because the lady at the Jim Rome show came up and asked me if I wanted makeup before I went on the show. I told her that was more of a question for her to answer than for me, and she looked at me and said, maybe we'll just take the shine off your head. And at that point, you don't really have an option.
Yes,
You're
I
like,
will take it.
Do what you need to do. I'm here for you. So if I don't have that much shine or if my head is unusually orange, it's because a very nice lady with makeup decided I needed to take the shine off my head before I went on their air.
Wow. I love that. That's good. I appreciate you bringing that information to the forefront here for our listeners.
Yeah.
That the shine is gone. Hey, look, there's Warren Sharp.
Good for Warren.
We did a little fist bump earlier today.
Yeah.
Us and Warren.
Can we go try and get a wing?
Yeah, let's go get some wings. All right. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. This is your Tuesday show. We'll be back again at some point tomorrow on Wednesday, and then Thursday show live-ish from Circa. Come meet us at Circa tomorrow, 4 p.m. Pacific, as we record Thursday show. All right, guys. We'll see you again tomorrow.